So we're curious, what are your thoughts on the color palette as it relates to design? Well, we're going to talk about that and a whole lot more. We are so excited to introduce to you Jean-Claude Desjardins.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful designer. And it's been an honor to get to know you over the last really weeks, fairly new entry. And I've been so impressed with your work. Personally, for years, I've watched your work, but now we get to work with each other. And I'm so honored to interview you, Jean-Claude. Welcome to Fly the Coop.
Well, thank you, Cari Ann.
We have a lot to talk about, Jean-Claude, and I want to start with color. I want to first find out, how did you end up in Minnesota, and how are you feeling about design here in this lovely city?
Okay, now you're gonna have me stuff, honestly. So, my wife got a job here, so I follow her here. I was excited to a new adventure. I always dream of living somewhere else. Minnesota wasn't the first choice because I didn't even know where it was on the map. And the only thing I knew about was the movie Fargo, which is not a good introduction to Minnesota. But anyway, we moved, and I really like it. It's weather is similar to Montreal. I'm from Montreal, Canada, so weather is similar. People are super nice, actually nicer than Montreal, I would say. Well, it's more. It's a little. It's a smaller town. It was a smaller town 20 years ago. And people are nicer. Montreal is a big city. If you go to New York or Chicago or big cosmopolitan city, neighbors don't always talk with neighbors. So here, I really, really like that about Minnesota.
Well, there's our pitch then for all the relos out there that are relocating, Jean-Claude, and are moving here. Is Minnesota?
Yeah. When they say Minnesota nice, it's totally true. People are very nice here. Because it's more like it's a big city now, but it feel like it still act like a small city, kind of.
True. You're absolutely right. That's spot on. So you're originally from Montreal. When did your design life begin? When did that all begin?
So I was always very interested. I mean, I was like 20 years old and I was designing my own furniture. I was doing my own furniture in my house. We bought a little townhome in Montreal. I changed everything on that townhome, and include some commercial product because I was working in commercial when out of school. I work a little bit in architectural firm, but I work mostly in commercial. So it's something called curtain wall system. Not a lot of people are familiar with that, but it's pretty much every building you look at, like skyscraper or even lower building, it's the skin of the building, it's the envelope, and it's called like a curtain wall. So every skyrise you see is made of curtain wall. So I got specialized in that, and I use some of these product from job site in my house in Montreal.
Oh wow!
So I was always really interested in design, but I was working for a company and doing project for architects, a big firm in New York and everywhere, because we were doing project pretty much everywhere. I did some project in Vietnam when I was in Montreal, some project in New York, everywhere. But I got more international project when I moved to the US. So my wife got an offer, a company here, Pentair, which is based here. Bought a company in Montreal, and they moved the production to Minnesota because it was a small little factory there. And they offer a job to my wife. So we moved here with one of the division of Pentair. It was quite an experience because I was barely speaking English back then because I grew up in a really, really French neighborhood in Montreal. My wife, half of her family is English speaking. So for her, she was pretty fluent in English. So I have to learn it and learn it fast. And I got lucky. So I don't know if we have the time to talk about how it happened, but
I would love to hear the story.
Okay. So I was still doing project for the company in Montreal. So just before I left, a lot of guys I work with started a new division in Montreal for a company called Permastilisa. which
Mhm.
is one of the biggest curtain wall company in the world. They're
Okay.
based in Venice, Italy, and they
Nice.
have office everywhere. One of their first big project was the Opera House in Sydney.
Mm.
They did the Bilbao Museum, the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao.
Wow.
Uh, Big projects. So I was doing project from my uh, uh, bedroom in Apple Valley for the company in Montreal, and it was the beginning of internet, 98.
Mhm.
But I was able to still function. They would send me the plan and I would do my part. I was working on a project called Baruch University in New York.
Mhm.
And my boss said, you know, that all part-time thing is working, but we'd like to offer you like a full-time job, even if you're in a different country.
Very cool.
So I said, yeah, sure, sure. I'd like to work for you guys. I'm here and I'm new. I don't know anyone. My English is not great. So they contact the company in Hartford. The headquarters was in Hartford, and the president in Hartford said, "Well, we have an office in Minneapolis. Why would you work for the office in Montreal?" So my boss in Montreal didn't even know because they have office everywhere. And the
Right.
headquarters, for people who don't know, a lot of big project in curtain wall around the world are made. The headquarters of curtain wall in the United States is Minneapolis.
Oh,
The 50
wow.
tower in Kuala Lumpur were designed here in Minneapolis.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I connect with the head of the office here, and it was not an interview. I already got the job before I sat down there because my boss in Montreal said, that guy worked in curtain wall for 15 years.
Mhm.
He knows the business. It's hard to find people in that business. So I talked to the guy and I said, well, my English not great, it's work in progress. And he's like, well, we work with Italian guy in Venice. Trust me, your English is pretty good compared to these guys.
Yeah.
So now when you go in an office for 8 hours a day,
Mhm.
you learn English really fast. So
Yeah,
within
indeed.
within 6 months, I was way better, and I got to work on some amazing project. I worked on the Soldier Field Stadium in Chicago.
Wow.
I was the job captain on that job. We worked for 3 years. It was a really tight budget, tight schedule because
Mhm.
the Bears, I think, were playing in Michigan somewhere for a year. And
Okay.
when they came back, that stadium has to be ready the day that the season start.
Mhm.
Uh, and from there, one of the person who worked with me at the curtain wall company went and quit because the pressure was pretty big and she was struggling with the pressure
Oh,
and wasn't enjoying it. She has a background in architecture and she wasn't doing architectural work there.
right.
It was more like a drafter. So she went and worked in Chicago for one of the, if not the best kitchen designer in the country, Mick DeGiulio.
Yes.
So Mick DeGiulio is a very well-known designer, and she went there and worked for a whole year and learned a lot about kitchens and called me one night and she said, do you like to do kitchens? I'd like to start a business with you. I saw your house. You had the eyes for it. I know you're not enjoying the whole curtain wall thing anymore because it was all about emails
Yeah.
and I was managing emails. That's what I was doing.
Mhm.
Uh, and we have like office, we have like people in Tennessee and Montreal. I was working with people. It was interesting because I was working with people everywhere in the world. So that was kind of cool.
Fascinating.
And she left her job in Chicago and we started a business 2 weeks later.
Wow.
And we tested for about a year in my house. And we opened up a showroom at IMS
Mhm.
after that.
And that's
International Market.
International Market Square for all of you that aren't familiar in the Twin
Yeah.
Cities.
So we opened a showroom there called Bell Kitchen.
Mhm.
I was there for about 10 years. After 10 years, we decided both partner to split ways and she bought out my share. I started a new business called Maison Kitchen Bath.
Mhm.
I opened a showroom in Edina. During COVID, I didn't know where the market was going. Nobody knew what, at the beginning of COVID.
Mhm.
And at the beginning of COVID, I kind of knew it was I don't want to say I kind of knew before everybody, but right in January, I knew it was going to be ugly. I was planning a trip to Europe. I canceled everything. I'm like, that thing's happening in China. It's gonna spread. They're shutting down whole city with 4 million per person per city. So I decided to get out of that showroom because I didn't know where the market was going.
Right.
So I closed the showroom and now I'm officing from my home. I love it.
Which is where you're sitting right now. And we happen to be on the
here.
market. We're on the market with Jean-Claude's home that you're looking at right there.
Yeah, we're selling that house
$0.9
right
million
now.
beautiful dollars. It's a screaming deal. We'll talk about that a little bit because that was really one. I mean, when people see your work, Jean-Claude, this really emulates and speaks to the work you've done for so many, not only here in the Twin Cities, but abroad. And I do want to start with the Milan showroom, which we talked about, because much of the finish selection you identified with for this renovation is stemming from Germany and Italy. You'll mention the brands, but you had gone to the Milan show. So explain to everybody. Let's just jump into that. Let's talk about design shows as they relate to what they are all over the country and the world. Give us the.
So we learned the secret from Mick DeGiulio because he's been going there, and that's why he's one of the reasons where he's ahead of the curve. So my business partner said we have to go to Milan. This is where it's happening. So every other year there's a big show there. It's 3 days. You don't have time to walk the whole show in 3 days. It's 10 times the McCormick in Chicago Convention Center. It's amazing. So all the manufacturer there build these booths of all the new trends that are coming. So when you go there, so let's say I went with my son there 4 years ago, maybe, and we kind of did the whole show with the first day, and we sit down and I say, well, what do you see? What did you see today? What do you think? He said, well, dark gray, dark gray is coming. Well, that was maybe 6 years ago with my son. Yeah, it was 6 years ago with my son. He said, well, it's a lot of dark. And he said, not much white anymore. The white it's still there, but 4 years later, 80% of the show was white. Everything was white. And now it was going gray. And the countertop, you see some of the trends that are coming. Same thing with the hardware. When a couple of years ago, we start to see more gold coming back, the matte gold.
Yep.
We've seen it like 6 years before, and we're like, oh no, not the gold, because I grew up with the shiny gold, and I'm like,
Shiny
oh
gold,
no,
not the gold.
not the gold again. But yeah, it came back. Now it's a little bit less than it was maybe 3-4 years ago. So you see, what you see there is what you're going to see in the US probably 2-3 years later.
Interesting.
Starting in the East and the West Coast, going into the middle. Sometimes it doesn't make it to the middle if it's too crazy.
Too trendy. Too trendy.
Yeah, too trendy. We saw like bright green at some point. The company came with bright green cabinetry, and I'm like, who's gonna buy that?
Yeah.
Well, we went to the factory and we saw like green going all over the place. I'm like, who's buying this kitchen? Oh, it's people in the Netherlands. He said they switch kitchen every 7 years there. So they embrace the trends because they're swapping constantly.
They have a lot of money, apparently.
And one thing that people don't know is when you move in Europe, you bring your kitchen with you.
What?
Yeah, they don't attach the kitchen to the wall. So when I get my cabinetry here from Germany, they're not made to be attached to the wall.
I'll be damned.
They're floating, they're on legs. And so they will spend a good amount of money on there. It's like buying a piece of furniture for them.
So when you buy a house, you may have to furnish it with a kitchen.
Yeah. People move with their kitchen. Not everywhere.
I'll just say I did not know that. That's
not everywhere, but yeah, this is kind of the way it's happening there.
That can be cost prohibitive. I mean, really, when you think about
for you in real estate, it'll be really different.
I think I'll stick here. A complete home package, move to Minnesota.
Yeah.
So when you designed your home, you brought in the very best of the best and what was absolutely trending highest and best at that point. But you also, at the same breath, kept it, we'll call it Minnesota nice. It's a
Yeah.
clean, lovely, light, beautiful palette. So share with us what you did and what your inspiration was. And were you true to what you really wanted, or did you dial it down because you lived here? Or did you do
No,
it the way you
no,
wanted?
no. I could live another 20 years in that house.
Yeah.
It's everything I like in that house. We have a couple of things that change along the way. Um, the floor was supposed to be concrete tile,
Okay.
and there's a couple of things that make us change our mind. So ideally, at the time when I designed the house, the plan was to do like a walnut kitchen.
Oh.
And that at that time, walnut was not popular. Now it is
Mm-hmm.
uh, popular, and it was maybe 2 years ago. Now it's more white oak.
Mm-hmm.
But when we did the kitchen, the plan was to do what I really like walnut. This is something
Yeah.
I really
So
like.
beautiful.
But we decided to go with the hardwood floor,
Mhm.
and I didn't want a house to look like a cabin.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if I do kitchen in wood and we have the ceiling, the ceiling is original to the house, that's going to be too much wood. So
Mm-hmm.
I decided to create wood on the top, wood at the bottom, and everything white in the middle.
Right.
So we paint all the trim. All the trim were oak. We paint all the trim in white. Everything is white in between, and I like it. But at the time, that was not what I was planning.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. So we're gonna attach all these different beautiful lines you've got. Give me your three favorite selections you brought into this home that are fairly consistent throughout the whole home, because I think it'd be so easy to emulate. You could reach out to Jean-Claude. It's stunning. It really is a classic look. So let's start with your cabinetry. Explain the cabinetry, the product, sourcing, and what it is.
So the cabinetry is from Germany. It's a brand called Liked. It's a brand I sold for the last 15 years, so I know the brand really well. I visit the factory several times in Germany, close to Stuttgart. Everything is made by robot. It's like visiting like a car factory. It's amazing. There's nobody in that factory.
Wow.
There's a couple of guys in front of computers, and
That's
nobody's lifting anything. It's the it's so precise.
mhm.
When you do like cabinetry with the saw and everything,
Yeah.
everything is to the hair. It's very. I
Wow.
mean, when you put together a kitchen with these cabinet, it's not complicated because all the
Oh,
cabinets are perfect. There's no plus or minus an eighth of an inch. It's
spot
German.
on.
It's spot
Mhm.
on. Yeah. So we decide. Well, I decided to create that block in the middle of the house. I saw that. I'm not sure where. It was a house up north in Montreal that
Mhm.
an architect designed, and he created that white block in the middle. And when I saw that, I'm like, that would be perfect for a house.
Yeah.
And after that, I'm like, at that time they came up with you can do like glass cabinetry,
Mhm.
but glass cabinetry is sometimes a little complicated to work with when you have appliances and think you got some limitation. So they
Right.
came up with a high acrylic front, which is
Mhm.
very, very reflective, a lot of depth. So when you walk into the house, we're surrounded by trees here. We call it like the tree house,
Yeah.
and there's
It's
those
nice.
everywhere. So the tree are reflecting in the cabinetry on that block. So as you walk in the house, you see the tree on the left, also on the right.
Mhm.
And when the sun go down, and it hit at the right place, and if you got some wind, it's very, very nice.
Very
And that was
cool.
kind of the whole idea of that white block surrounded by top and bottom wood, and the tree are reflecting. So that's one of the feature I like the most.
I agree. It's
The
stunning.
other the other feature is my front wall.
Mhm.
So
Love your front wall.
we did like a three-dimensional plaster, and I saw that in a TV ad, Cadillac TV ad. It was in a house. It was around a fireplace,
Oh,
and I was
beautiful.
able to find the source. It's a company based in Seattle, and just ordered a whole thing. It was a couple of pallets, and then we installed it, and it's
Stunning.
nobody else got something like that in their house. Nobody that I know of. But you need like a pretty big wall to make a good impact. Because I saw like an application in a hotel lobby in downtown,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't have the wow factor. If you do like a small wall, it doesn't have the wow factor. You need a pretty big wall to
Yeah, you do. To get the true multi-dimensional effect that it has,
yeah,
it's impressive. It's literally what, 16 feet in there, I think, right? What is
yeah, around 16, because the entry is about 2.5 floors high. So
it's
you see it from the house. So we always got one or twice a day, like a car stopping by and try to peek inside the house. Like, what is that wall? Like, what is it?
mm-hmm.
So
So share with everybody your pitch on appliances because it's really a beautiful collection. And you are very mindful about your design and have a beautiful appliance package in this kitchen.
yeah, so we have like Gaggenau here. I'm also a big fan of Sub-Zero Wolf. I was a dealer for years. I really like their griddle. I have a griddle in my previous house, and I was a big fan of it. But the look of the griddle wasn't working with the look of the house.
Mm-hmm.
So here we have like a teppanyaki, which is kind of like Benihana.
Yep.
And people are always like, well, we don't do French toast or pancake. And it's not a pancake. You can do it. I mean, look at Benihana. You can do anything on a teppanyaki. So we use it like almost every day.
Very cool.
The kid were using it a lot too. So we have a teppanyaki cooked up. We have like an induction cooked up.
Yep.
And we have a gas. So the induction is really, really good to boil our water and all sort of other things. But I really like it for boiling water. It boil water in about 3 minutes. It's really fast.
Very cool. Very cool. So the appliance package, when you designed it, because it's highly efficient. What I loved about your kitchen, it emulates a commonality out there for most, which is efficiency. It's not a massive kitchen by any means.
No, it's a
Incorporated
small
the
kitchen.
block. It's a small kitchen. And what you did with the block, and we're going to show imagery of all of this Jean-Claude is part of, you were really efficient with the garage
Yeah,
concept.
we have a Princess garage because we don't have, we have just one island. And on the island, we have the three cooked up and the sink. So that doesn't give you a lot of space. But we have a sink that's like a workable sink where you have like boards. So we have cutting boards. Under that, we have like a strainer.
Mhm.
So it's not just a cleaning sink, it's a working sink. So this is where I do all the preps on the sink.
Very cool. I love it. I love the
And we have one thing I didn't mention is we have a steam oven that we use every day.
yes. Mm-hmm.
So steam
Share
oven
with
is something
everybody.
you're gonna see more and more in kitchens.
Yeah. And explain to everybody because I think it's important to articulate the efficiency because you use that in replacement of a microwave every day.
Yeah, if you want to eat food, if you put that in the steam oven, it's almost better than the night before.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's better than the night before.
And
Because you
nutritionally,
can
it holds
control the humidity, but it's also your second oven. Sometimes people want two oven, and I always ask like, how often are you going to use that?
mm-hmm.
And it's always like they said on Thanksgiving,
Mm-hmm.
because most people don't use two oven at the same time unless you're a baker or something like that.
Right.
So it's at that. So now, if you use I call it the real estate in your kitchen, because you're always fighting to get enough storage versus people have a tendency to put a lot of appliances
Mm-hmm.
and they don't have enough storage after that. So you have to kind of figure it out, like the right balance. So if you have something that do multiple things, like a steam oven where you can steam vegetable, you can cook rice, you can do a turkey in there. We did a turkey 1 year. You cannot do an 18-pound turkey, but you can do like a 13, 14-pound. It will cook in an hour and a half.
Oh my gosh. Get
Yeah,
out.
and it won't be dry. The first time we use it, we start the turkey at 2:30 and it was ready at 4. I'm like, wow, that was fast.
Wow. So how
Yeah.
does the exterior look then? Like how do you get the crispiness?
Yeah, well, it's an oven, so it's
Still
crispy, but
getting
it's also moist because you can control the humidity level of your oven.
interesting. Very interesting. How
So,
fascinating. I bet a lot of
yeah.
people don't know that.
Well, people think they need a 30-inch oven to do a big turkey,
Mhm.
but we're from Montreal, so there's no 15-person party here.
Yeah.
It's always a pretty small party. So we don't do like 18-pound turkey. So if you want to
Mhm.
do 18-pound turkey, you use your regular oven.
Yeah.
But if you do like a 14, 13, it works in the steam oven and it's fast. And
Impressive.
it's good. And it's good. It's not dry.
So, leaping into your personal design experience, how did this, because you've had several homes you've personally done for yourself over the years, how did this lead into the relationships that you have and know today as it relates to the work that you do? And do people come to you, Jean-Claude, because you have a specific styling? Because you do a lot of luxury work.
Yeah, I don't have like my personal preference is what you see in the house.
Mhm.
This is what I like. But 10 years ago, the big thing was French country,
Mhm.
and I was pretty good at French country. We win a lot of awards at French country because
Mhm.
people thought I was French,
Yeah.
but I'm French
He's
Canadian.
French, so he can do French country.
Yeah, but I can do pretty much any style. But my personal preference is modern. But we were like years and years of, I mean, 90% of our project were like very, very traditional and mostly French country
Mhm.
with the corbel and very ornate.
Yep.
Uh, Now that the trend is a little bit more clean, a little bit more transitional,
Mhm.
which I like a little bit better to design, but I can do pretty much any style.
Well, that's a great segue. I have a
It's all about proportion when
it
you
is about
design.
proportion.
Proportion and scale.
Mhm.
You got these principle. You always want to create a focal point where your cooking area is when you have a big range. Sometimes I see kitchen and they put like a 30 inches range with like a little hood, and there's no focal point to look at. You want to
Mhm.
create something in the middle most of the time. So you
Right.
need 6 or 48, uh, and you create a focal point.
Mhm.
You don't want to create too many focal point because now
Oh,
your eye doesn't know where to look at.
right.
Um,
Point.
so you don't want to create a busy look,
Mhm.
but you want to create where the eye is going to be driven.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's my philosophy about.
So, during a time where costs are going up and labor is going up, and this is a perfect segue. You 10 years ago, we'll say, did a lot of heavy French country. If your client comes back to you and says, Jean-Claude, the trend is gone and I really want to kind of modernize this and get it back on spot again, what would be your advice? Would you be able to retrofit a space like that? Or how do you clean up the lines when you're looking at evolution of kitchen design decade by decade? What's your solution to that?
Well, let's see.
That's a
It's a
big
hard
one.
one. Yeah, well, usually we take off everything and we redo it.
Mhm.
And you
Yeah,
see that a lot. People who are kind of my age,
hmm
they want a cleaner line.
I agree.
They don't want the fuss anymore. They don't want the cleaning of the fuss because when you have all these corbel and all these door with these little ridges,
Hmm.
it's collecting dust. And
Hmm.
people, we have people, they're like, oh yeah, we have a condo in Florida in Naples, and we have that modern kitchen and we kind of like it. We got used to it and we like to do that now here because
Yeah,
we have a kitchen we did 15 years ago and it's very traditional
yeah.
and we don't like that anymore. So yeah, people go cleaner now. Uh,
I
it,
agree.
it it took a while because it was cleaner everywhere else, and
Hmm.
in Minnesota it wasn't doing it.
It wasn't
Uh,
doing it. Well,
no,
it kind
no,
of goes back to our earlier conversation. It just takes us a while to catch up.
yeah, I mean, just a quick story, when I moved here, I didn't know anything about anything. And Montreal is a big city, and they're a little bit ahead of there's I think they have the European design before maybe like Minnesota.
Yep.
So I was used to see things, and I came here and I couldn't find any of these things.
Hmm.
I was trying to find like a stainless steel refrigerator 25 years ago. Everything was almond.
Almond. Oh.
Yeah. If you want like stainless steel, you have to buy a Sub-Zero. And we're moving here. We couldn't afford a Sub-Zero.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to Warner Stillion,
Yeah.
and the salesman said something funny. He's like, yeah, because I was telling him my frustration about, how come you guys don't have that here? It's everywhere in Montreal. Like you guys still have like brass hardware in Montreal. It's all like nickel.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy said, he was kind of funny. He's like, well, the whole country shipping their almond refrigerator in Minnesota. But that's the only place you can still sell almond refrigerator. So yeah, it takes a little bit more time. People are a little bit more conservative about what they do about design.
Yeah.
But that was 22 years ago. Now, if you look at the progression of Minneapolis, 22 years ago, it was not as big of a city as it is right now.
No, they're definitely trending now.
Oh yeah,
We've
yeah.
brought up the game big time, big time. So your future, does it always include Minnesota, or does it transition into a different kind of life altogether? Will you continue the snow state, or will
No,
you
no, the
eat the
snow
snow
is the
state?
snow is gonna go away, I think. Yeah, we're my wife got still a couple of year
Mhm.
to work, but we're starting to look at where we're gonna end up. We got our citizenship last year, so we were on a green card before, so we could stay here. We're
Mhm.
looking at different option here, but I'm looking at south of Portugal and south of Spain, maybe.
Nice.
And maybe have a place either here in Minnesota or in Montreal.
Hmm.
It's all depend on where the kids gonna be, where
Mhm.
the grandkids, if we
Where
have
it's gonna be.
grandkids, gonna be. It's all, I mean, everybody that goes through that stage, you
Mhm.
can do a lot of plan, but you don't know what's gonna happen in the next 10 years.
Mhm.
But ideally, it's not gonna be 12 months a year in the snow.
No, and that's 40% honestly of the work that I do is just like and it's okay to have some roots still and maybe come up with a right sizing option that keeps you rooted, and then you move along and have a second home. There's a lot of second home ownership, and there will be
Yeah,
over the next decade for the purpose of weather, which is perfectly okay. I think
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
natural and organic thing to do. As we get older, we just need a break from the snow.
From
So
the
it's
snow.
totally an okay thing. So I am super excited. We've got so much interest in this beautiful home that you've created. It's truly a masterpiece. It really is, Jean-Claude. You've done an
Yeah. It's gonna
extraordinary.
break my heart to sell it.
I know it is.
But
Everyone
it's
it was a labor
it's
of love,
fine.
most certainly.
Yeah, it's a little big for us. And I need another project. I wanna do another one where I can do everything I got in my head right now.
Mhm. I
I
can't
got a
wait
lot of
to see it. I
yeah, I
can't
got
wait
a
to.
lot of good idea. Yeah, I got a lot of good idea. But it's gonna be, as far as the look, it's gonna be the same kind of look, but more like a one floor house.
Mhm.
I'm thinking future, and a lot of windows. And I would really like to be like in the wood like we are right now. This is
Yeah.
one of the things that's very, I never live in a house in the wood like that. And I don't know if I can go back to a
Yeah. Well, it's
regular
nice to
house.
have that. It's connectivity to nature and to the organic is just an amazing thing to have. So really, really inspirational to watch the transformation and watch your work and be able to meet you in person finally and be able to really learn all about Jean-Claude. It's been really an honor. And I'm so glad you were able to take some time with us today so we could interview you and share some of your humor, comedy, and insight and your amazing mind in the world of design.
Well,
Thank you
thank you,
so much,
Cari Ann.
Jean-Claude. Thank you. It was an honor.
Thank you.
Jean-Claude, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. See you next time on Fly the Coop.